In an English estate with a long and storied past, countless witnesses have reported a ghostly woman in brown wandering the corridors. A century later, a photographer captured such a sighting, cementing the spirit as a legend. Today, we're discussing the haunting stories behind the world's most famous ghost photograph depicting the Brown Lady of Raynham Hall. This is Red Web. Welcome back and happy Halloween, Task Force. This is another episode of Red Web, the podcast all about unsolved mysteries, true crime, and the supernatural. I am your resident mystery enthusiast, Trevor Collins, and joining me hearing about this spirit for the very first time, Alfredo Diaz.
You know, just when you think that there's maybe we're running out of episodes to do or something like that, or you bring forth what is the world's most famous paranormal photo, ghost photo.
Yeah, we just dust off the old world's most famous ghost photograph of all time.
How is that not in the top 200 episodes that we've done?
I know.
What?
There's so many times where we're just like, we sit here and then we're whipping out like, yeah, just some case that we're like, I can't believe we haven't covered this yet.
I haven't even thought about that, right? Like, I mean, I guess more so for cryptids. I know it's like, oh, what's the most famous Loch Ness Monster photo? There's the one that ended up being fake, and then there's what's the most famous Bigfoot photo. It's like people have seen these photos. Yeah, I don't know. I can't recall if you were to, like right now, you're telling me what's is the most famous ghost photo. I have no idea what that is. I can't picture it.
Yeah, man. I was recently looking at a list that is like, these are the top 10 most quintessential ghost photographs of all time. Many of them I knew, but some of them I'm like, hold on a second. Like this one I had kind of known about. We'll talk about the theories behind it, what it is, and we'll get into all of it, and I'll show you here in a bit. But what's really interesting about this picture in particular is the history behind it, the story, the folklore that goes into this one. But yeah, dude, it's surprising how many just photographs of ghosts or spirits that are apparently world-renowned that I've genuinely never seen before. So there's a lot of stories left to be told. And this one is very interesting. I think it's perfect for the Halloween season because, as luck would have it, one of the eyewitnesses, and this is old-timey stuff. We're not talking about bumping in the bumps in the night here in recent years. We're talking like in the 1800s, there are people witnessing these ghosts. And one of their daughters was a writer and so recounted one of the stories that her father told her. And so this one almost has a little bit of a story time within it. And then we'll talk about the photo itself and some of the attempts to analyze it, some of the theories that attempt to debunk it. And then I'll give you one of the most prominent theories behind it, and then we'll analyze all of it. But it's a really interesting case that, as always, combines history with folklore with the paranormal. It's a very interesting one. But of course, since it is the Halloween season this year, with your support, Task Force, over at redwebpod.com and your support on our 5-year anniversary stream, we are going back, much to Fredo's chagrin, we are going back to ghost hunting. Tomorrow, we are kicking them all off. This is the first of our stretch goal ghost hunts. We are revisiting Yorktown Memorial Hospital, considered one of the most haunted spots in Texas, and Fredo, the birthplace of baby hands.
Little baby hands. Oh, how he might have grown.
Let's see if his cheeks have grown, if his hands have grown, but his body stayed the same, you know?
Everything has grown, but his hands.
but his hands.
They stayed tiny. Yeah, no, it's going to be fun to go back and revisit the place where, the first ghost hunt, where all kind of started for Red Web. And then I was reminded that there's cages in the basement.
That I had forgotten.
I had forgotten that.
Christian kindly reminded us that there are cages in the basement.
And that's where the weird stuff happened. And so now we go back because that's smart.
Yeah. Well, I think it's brilliant. It's a genius level maneuver. No one would ever see it coming. Ghosts would never see us coming twice. They say lightning never strikes twice.
Right.
But Red Web
they would never expect a second opportunity.
But yeah, we are going back to Yorktown. It is familiar stomping grounds. It is the first place, so we were a little bit green, and so now we come back with some new tools, new gadgets. We already did cover the history of Yorktown Memorial Hospital. It is an episode, so if you want to go check that out while you wait for tomorrow, when this will appear on YouTube and on Patreon. We're going to do concurrently because it's the Halloween season. We don't want anyone waiting till after Halloween to check this one out. But anyway, redwebpod.com. youtube.com/redwebpod. That's where you can check it out. We're going to update baby hands on what has changed in the world, and then we're going to see if we capture any new or different evidence. If you want to support us directly, Patreon will get some exclusives, some uncut long shots in the place, any deleted scenes that don't make it into the final episode. We'll put a lot of the potential evidence up on Patreon for any budding ghost hunters and investigators out there to analyze the raw footage. But without further ado, let us go back to the 18th century, because this is where our history of this paranormal story begins. And it is at the country house known as Raynham Hall. This is in Norfolk, England. And Fredo, right out the gate, as always, I'd like to start you with a photo.
Here we go.
And as you pull this photo up, you'll see this stunning facade. This building served as the ancestral seat of power for the Townsend family, highlighting their immense power and wealth and political influence.
3 floors, 10 windows on the first floor, just across the bottom.
Oh yeah, just across the bottom. There are lots of windows here.
10 on the second, and then what is it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I mean, I guess 8, 9, 10 if you count the circle one. I mean, dang. This place is huge. What is that? 1, 2, 3, 4 smokestacks, 5, 6 maybe?
Well, every bedroom's got to have a chimney because that's how you heat the old house back in the day. But I think there's an attic too, so maybe 4 levels.
Yeah, it looks like it could be an attic. So some duck in the front, duckies.
Yeah, we got some ducks out there.
Little dirt road, grass is looking green and lush.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a really nice house.
I'll tell you, the UK's got that grass that Texas only wishes it could have. Texas, it's always burnt and fried.
It is.
The UK, it's always, half the year's overcast. It's like it's a moister climate.
Mm-hmm.
And so, it's always lush.
It's lush. Our grass here is deprived of water.
Forever and always.
Just always just, help me.
Help. No, here's more sun. I heard sun's good for you.
Yeah, no, that's what you want.
But yeah, it's a beautiful building. And like I said, I think construction began in the late 17th century to really give you an idea of time here. But as our story continues, it continues into the early 1700s. And this hall is also well known, as you now know, as the haunting home of the ghost known as the Brown Lady of Raynham Hall. Now, this spirit has earned her name due to the brown brocade gown that many eyewitnesses have reported during their encounters with this spirit. And this is a really interesting piece of lore here because a lot of spirits are, vaguely grayscale, black and white. You see like a ghostly apparition, usually in like a white dress or something. So I'm really interested to hear so many people saw a brown dress draped over this spirit. Now, the name of this spirit was further immortalized after Country Life magazine published the famous photo of the Brown Lady in 1936. This image stands as the most famous ghost photograph probably in the world. I think one could argue that. And we'll talk more about the history of that photo later, but I think before we get there, before we dive straight into the spirit, the hauntings, the eyewitness encounters, I think we need to wind ourselves back a little bit further, talk about the history of this place and the potential identity of who this woman might be. So the spirit of the Brown Lady of Raynham Hall is said to belong to Lady Dorothy Walpole. We do have a photo of her here, or at least a portrait of what she would have looked like.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean, it's an old painting of a very pale woman.
Yeah, that's what they say, the porcelain skin, the rosy red lips.
Yes.
The sign of wealth when you don't have to go outside.
Right. You do not need the sun.
Back in the day, they stayed inside, and if you touched grass, well, that's...
Too far, too much.
That's a worker's thing.
Yeah. Yeah, very elegant, very regal looking.
So Lady Dorothy Walpole, also known as Lady Townsend, is the sister of Robert Walpole, who is widely regarded as the first Prime Minister of Great Britain, who then served from 1721 to 1742. So it gives you an idea of how well connected politically she is just from the start. Now, on July 6th, 1713, Dorothy married a man named Charles II, Viscount Townsend. Charles himself was also a politician, and he met Dorothy through her brother Robert, who was also his friend and close political ally. With this marriage, Dorothy then became Charles' second wife. His first wife, Elizabeth Pelham, unfortunately passed away just a few years prior in 1711 after giving birth to their daughter. So now the two are married, they've moved in together, and there's rumors around town that Dorothy and Charles don't really have the best marriage. The root of their problems has been speculated over the years, but it's generally thought that Charles was cruel with a fiery temper, with Dorothy as an adulterer. Legend then says that Dorothy cheated on Charles with a man named Lord Wharton, which was another politician who was also known for his extramarital affairs, and so let me tell you right now, it's like Jersey Shore out here. The drama, the gossip, it's real.
Yep, it's all over the place, different eras.
This is like The Crown, but a much smaller Crown.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I will say, though, some other sources say that Dorothy did not commit adultery whatsoever, but rather she had prior relations with Lord Wharton, and the knowledge and jealousy of this fact is what then angered Charles. So you can kind of see it both ways. You know, some say, oh, she was cheating. Others say, well, she's a woman who wasn't married at a certain point. She can have relations. And then now that she's married, Charles is looking back on this with some sort of jealousy. And the story then continues. It's this anger, this jealousy that Charles had that led him to punish her. It's been said that Charles then locked Dorothy away in her room there in Raynham Hall, preventing her from ever leaving. The tale goes on to say that on no occasion was she ever allowed to leave, not even to see any of her 11 children.
Damn, 11 children? I mean, they really popped them out back then, but damn.
That's a lot of kids,
That's a
dude.
lot of kids. They're pregnant for like 10 years.
Honestly, yeah. Yeah. Now, reports do vary on this fact as well, as far as how many children the couple had, but the popular number is 11. Now, however you slice it, the one fact remains true. Dorothy did pass away, and it's widely believed that she passed away from smallpox in 1726 at the young age of 39 years old. Again, there are many legends around this, though. Some say that smallpox was simply a cover-up, and that the truthful reason that she died was starvation, with some adding that this was a direct result of her imprisonment. She wasn't allowed out to see her children. Maybe she wasn't being properly fed or nourished, though many also believe that she died in starvation from a more metaphorical standpoint, an emotional sense, because she was so far removed from her children, and that was to her just too much to bear. Ultimately, though, when we look back on this story, there's a few things to note. Charles' temper and jealousy are considered historical fact, which gives possibility to this story. I mean, that's kind of the foundation for a lot of this story to lay on. He was well known for his jealousy, well known for his fiery temper, though many historians consider Dorothy's imprisonment a little bit more folklore than fact, given her politically powerful brother lived, it is said, maybe just a few miles away. And I feel like retribution would have been very swift.
Mm-hmm.
There's no way that this would have happened and been hid away from his knowledge.
Right.
And so, especially since Charles and he were close political allies, this would definitely not be something that he would want to do. So there's a lot of reasons why this might not have happened. But either way, when you look past the several inconsistencies across the many tellings, the popularity of this tale seems to point to something. It points to the need for answers, and those answers stem from the many ghost sightings. So, once a ghost was reported in the corridors of Raynham Hall, many were looking for these explanations. Many started to look at the portraits in Raynham Hall. They noticed the similarities to Dorothy's portrait, and they also started to realize, well, Dorothy did have an untimely death, and all of this was top of mind. This fueled the gossip. This fueled the search for a paranormal explanation. And so with that, let's now discuss some of the hauntings that have been reported over the centuries. This episode of Red Web is sponsored by Rocket Money. Now, before we dive in, I just want to say Rocket Money is an app I use every single week because it tracks all my expenses across all my different cards and bank accounts, so I know where my money's going, and I also know where it's coming from. I love that it categorizes everything because when I'm trying to save on my budget, I want to see if my groceries are growing in a certain way or staying static. I want to see if I'm spending too much on movies or entertainment or streaming services, or if there are subscriptions I've forgotten about. It really is convenient, and even if you just use the free version of the app, it it is hyper convenient to see all of these things in one place. If you're trying to save money, I can't recommend it enough. Task Force, managing your finances, of course, takes time. And luckily, like I said, Rocket Money does all the heavy lifting for you, and they automatically find ways to save and simplify the process so there's less stress, more free time, and a clearer path towards financial freedom, and it's all in one app. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps find and cancel unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. Rocket Money shows you all your expenses in one place, including subscriptions you've forgotten about, and if you see those subscriptions, by the way, and you no longer want them, Rocket Money will help you cancel them. Their dashboard lays out your total financial picture, including bill due dates and pay dates, and it's all very easy to digest. It's color-coded, and you can change categories and everything like that, so you can really focus on what you want. You can even automatically create some custom budgets if that's something you want to do based on your past spending. Now here's the rub, okay? Rocket Money has saved users over $2.5 billion, including over $880 million in canceled subscriptions alone. Their 10 million members save up to $740 a year when they use all the app's premium features. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/redweb today. Let them know we sent you. Get yourself into a stronger financial position. That's rocketmoney.com/redweb. One more time, rocketmoney.com/redweb. So reportedly, the first recorded sighting of Dorothy's spirit came around Christmas in 1835. This would be 109 years after her death. So that really gives you an idea of how separated. There's no first-person connections here. This is multiple generations. And so I think this is really interesting, that it wasn't right away, that it wasn't someone that would have known her. It was distant and removed. According to one Lucia C. Stone, a Christmas party was being held at Raynham Hall that year. In attendance was a man named Colonel Loftus, who claims that he and another guest named Hawkins saw this ghost one evening in the halls when they were on their way back to the bedroom. I guess they were retiring to go to bed that night after the parties and festivities, and as they're approaching their bedrooms, they see this spirit, this apparition down the hallway, and they don't really think too much of it. They just kind of go to bed. But the next day, Colonel Loftus once again saw this same apparition near the stairs, and this allowed him to take a closer look. This enabled him to get a more vivid description of this spirit, because the night prior, I think the only thing he really noticed was the brown dress that this spirit was wearing. But now, having a closer look, he describes this feminine spirit as having dark, hollow sockets for eyes, and her face was glowing, and so these dark sockets stood out against her glowing face. And once again, she was wearing this brown, old-fashioned dress that was kind of draped over her, so it wasn't form-fitting, it was very flowy in a sense. Now, his reports of what he saw frightened so many people working at Raynham Hall that many of the staff turned in their resignation letters pretty immediately. People were just simply terrified of the idea of the paranormal and ghosts. And when you look at the early to mid 1800s, you can really see the upswing and intrigue on the afterlife. What happens when you die? And this is really when the idea of ghosts have hit the zeitgeist. I mean, they've become very popular. Nowadays, we talk about cryptids, and aliens are our flavor of the month. We've got ghosts, we've got all sorts of these things. But around this time, ghosts were kind of the one thing, the main thing that people were obsessed with.
So it could have just been like people were looking for stuff at this point, or they're primed to see things.
Totally could be. But it's also, it's preying on their fears, their curiosities of the unknown, what happens. And so that's why you see this reaction. When someone's reporting a ghost in the hallways, a lot of the staff are like, all right, I'm out. I don't need any of that. I just work here. Now, it was at this point that Lord Charles Townshend, who confusingly was a different man of the same name, not to be confused with Dorothy's husband, he admitted that he frequently saw the brown lady in his room at night. He also reported that the children of the house would often ask him of this lady dressed in brown, hey, who is this woman that we see around the house wearing this brown dress? He would field these questions and kind of brush them off and say, oh, I don't know, or maybe one of the staff. But this implied that there had been some sort of quiet, maybe terrified history of seeing this apparition around the house prior to this. And so when someone such as Colonel Loftus points it out, they go, okay, I'm not the only one. Let me also share my experience, because if I was the only one and I said, yeah, me and the kids are seeing this, maybe it invalidates it. Maybe I'm going a little silly. Maybe I'm seeing things. So this really kicked things off, but it wouldn't be for another year that another major ghost sighting would happen. This was 1836. A man named Captain Frederick Marriott was a Navy officer and a friend of the Townsend family. And while he was visiting, he had reportedly asked to stay in the most haunted room on the estate. Now, this wasn't random. You see, after the incident in 1835, the family was convinced that somehow they had become the target of a complex and eerie practical joke, that there was a more corporeal explanation to what was going on, and Marriott, being a visitor and friend of the family, is like, well, put me in the most haunted room and I will prove this theory. I'll prove that it's a practical joke and we can all sleep sounder for it. However, his experience ended up being far more terrifying in his opinion. He spent 3 nights. The first 2 nights were quiet. Didn't hear anything or see anything. I believe 2 of his nephews were also there. And I'll give the story. I want to quote his daughter, Florence Marriott, who wrote about this experience many years later in 1891, so nearly 60 years later. And I want to quote her, and I've slightly shortened it because she put a lot of extraneous details, but suffice to say, this is the tale of what happened that night. On the 3rd night, there are 2 nephews that are also staying in the hallways. And her language is very flowery, so I want to make sure it's clear that each of these bedrooms in this hallway has like a double door. There's an outer door and an inner door, and you have almost like a small entryway into each room. And that's where he ends up hiding when he sees this spirit. And so with that, Fredo, I'll quote the story in Florence Marriott's words. Quote, Captain Marriott took possession of the room in which
the portrait of the apparition hung, and in which she had been often seen and slept each night with a loaded revolver under his pillow. On the 3rd night, 2 nephews of the baronet knocked at his door and asked him to step over to their room. As they were leaving the room, he caught up his revolver. In case you meet the brown lady, he said, laughing. The corridor was long and dark, for the lights had been extinguished, but as they reached the middle of it, they saw the glimmer of a lamp coming towards them from the other end. One of the ladies going to visit the nurseries, whispered the young Townsends to my father. Now the bedroom doors in that corridor faced each other, and each room had a double door with a space between, as is the case in many old-fashioned houses. My father was in his shirt and trousers only, and his native modesty made him feel uncomfortable, so he slipped within one of the outer doors in order to conceal himself until the lady should have passed by. I have heard him describe how he watched her approaching nearer and nearer through the crack in the door, until, as she was close enough for him to distinguish the colors and style of her costume, he recognized the figure as the facsimile of the portrait of the brown lady. He had his finger on the trigger of his revolver, and was about to demand it to stop and give the reason for its presence there, when the figure halted, of its own accord, and holding the lighted lamp she carried to her features, grinned in a malicious and diabolical manner at him. This act so infuriated my father that he sprang into the corridor and discharged the revolver right in her face. The figure instantly disappeared, and the bullet passed through the outer door of the room on the opposite side of the corridor and lodged in the panel of the inner one. My father never attempted again to interfere with the brown lady
of Raynham. And so there you have the end of this tale from Florence Marriott.
Hey, I was like, you better hope you have some holy bullets or something. Like,
dude,
I'm just going to load up a revolver and start shooting at a ghost. Yeah, good luck with that, buddy. But she disappeared.
She disappeared.
The whole grin and everything. Because then you think, I don't know, maybe she's just floating around. The grin and all that, the approach is like, this could be some evil here. As opposed to a ghost kind of just doing its thing and echoing through time.
Now, I don't like that. I'm picturing, he's looking through the crack in the door. That's how it's further described in parts that I've kind of removed here. But he's in this door. He's looking through the slit so he can see her approaching. He's got his gun. And this is almost like the Van Meter visitors. So like a whole town of people that see this cryptid, and as soon as they do, they just start blasting.
Yeah.
I gotta be honest though, I kind of appreciate it in this moment. We don't ever see this or hear about this.
We don't.
Someone sees a ghost and they just start shooting it in the face?
I mean, hell yeah. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Like, I
come
like the
on.
fact that he just like let loose on the revolver as opposed to it.
Yeah.
Not being used. But again, I'd be like, I don't know, maybe I need to douse this gun and get this gun blast, douse these bullets in holy water, and then go to town.
Right. You carve a note that says goodbye ghost on it, or something like that. But here's the thing. I have to believe that some of this is a little heightened either by a father to his daughter telling a ghost story, or his daughter, who was a writer in her own regard. She wrote about the idea of the afterlife. And so this was something that was very interesting to her. I would hope that she wouldn't just
embellish these things,
exaggerate for the sake. Yeah. But it's very possible, to
Very
be
much
transparent. But the idea that this spirit also, as to your point, raised the light up and her face then became malicious and terrifying looking is so interesting, because it does play against the stone tape theory that we've talked about all month now. But it's conscious, it's aware of his presence, it's looking at him. But props to him for saying, I'm not taking any of that. He's a captain, he hops out, bang.
Gone.
But I'm also trying to think practically, if he's thinking of this as some sort of practical joke, something more corporeal in explanation, what did he maybe expect when he shot it in the face? Because, like, what if a person dropped dead? Because that's a terrible prank if you're like, I look evil, and then I got shot in the face. Like, I don't know what he might have actually been thinking.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, that's why you don't go scaring people. You never know their fight or flight reaction.
Right. We often talk about, if you could time travel back in time, where would you go? What would you do? Let's just say you go back to the 1800s in England. Just don't dress up like a ghost.
Oh, yeah, they might just start shooting.
You might just start catching bullets or something. But man, a very vivid tale to be sure, and a perfect one for the Halloween season.
Yeah, but when you talked about the grin, I was imagining like a Smile or Attack on Titan grin, and I was like, ugh, I don't like that. I don't like that at all.
Yes, absolutely. Now, there remain a few tales over the years, and I will say, once the photograph that we're about to talk about kind of was published, it seemed like a lot of these encounters really diminished for whatever reason. But there are a few accounts that discuss the tale of a high-ranking visitor that visited this house. This was something I couldn't necessarily confirm or deny by historical fact, but it's often told as being King George IV. When he was just a prince, he visited Raynham Hall. There is no record of the soon-to-be King George IV visiting Raynham Hall, but either way, it is said a high-ranking visitor. So with that, someone. And this person visited Raynham Hall. They stayed in the house, and at night they were awoken to a spirit in a brown dress, but this time the spirit had disheveled hair, looked terrifying, and was almost leaning over them. And because of this, it greatly terrified them, and they left immediately, promising to never return. Again, perhaps a little bit more folklore than fact, but it does continue to build the idea that, for whatever reason, this isn't just a spirit that one walks into, that you just see a lady wandering the halls, but instead that this is something conscious, that this is aware of its guests, and for some reason has some level of malicious intent. That's what these stories seem to paint. And I think this is where I want to stop for a second and reflect on the folklore of Lady Dorothy herself, because a lot of that is embellished, a lot of that isn't necessarily proven by historical record. And so a lot of these ghost encounters happened, and then people started looking back on the untimely young death of Lady Dorothy.
Right.
And so that's why the story leading up to this is so ripe with, oh, maybe there's adultery. Like, we know that Charles had a temper. We know that he was a jealous type. That is on record. But everything else is a little bit harder to base in reality, the trappings, the leaving away from her children, but it does help to answer for why everybody here seems to have such terrifying encounters, and why, if this is Lady Dorothy, maybe why she's a little bit more vitriolic, so to speak.
Also, like, when you have a ghost, people like to think it's happened because something tragic, you know?
Yeah,
or
yeah.
It's a tormented soul in the past life.
The unfinished business.
I was so happy. I'm the happiest person in the world, and it passed away, and it's like, and now I'm a ghost.
Yeah. Yeah, where are these happy ghosts, dude?
I mean,
giggle.
no,
Hey, if you're here, can I get a giggle?
Yeah.
You know, and you're just an EVP of a. I think the nicest ghost was our first ghost, Baby Hands.
Baby Hands himself. Very nice.
We're coming back. We're gonna do a little seance. We're gonna put out our hands. You know what I should have got for our ghost hunt? Those little plastic small hands, so he would feel more comfortable holding our hands.
Way more comfortable. That's right. That's true.
There's still time.
Our hands might be too big.
Yeah. It'd
Too
be swallowing up
intimidating.
those little. But here's the thing. Now, I've laid the carpet out. I want to talk about this infamous photo, this evidence of the Brown Lady of Raynham Hall. And it wouldn't come out for yet another 100 years. And so at this point, we're like 210 years removed from the untimely passing of Dorothy here. So now we're in the 20th century. It is September 19th, 1936, and two photographers for Country Life magazine decide to take a trip to Raynham Hall. Now, again, some reports state that the two were there to capture the amazing, and truly it is, the amazing architecture of the estate. But interestingly, and perhaps coincidentally, that same year, the current lady of the Townsend estate published a book entitled True Ghost Stories, where she not only wrote about the Brown Lady of Raynham Hall, but also other popular hauntings in the area as well. And so, other reports claim that it's possible these photographers were not there necessarily for the architecture, but rather to explore these freshly unearthed and these reminiscent stories, right? It's now back top of mind. Let's go to this haunted place and see what happens.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe they have more of an idea in mind. We'll get into the debunking angle later. So now at the estate, you have photographer Captain Hubbard Provind and his assistant Indre Shira, and they decide to capture a focal point of this house, the grand staircase. And I mean, it is beautiful. It is truly one of the focal points of the house, and you would struggle to find modern photos inside the house that don't somehow see this set of stairs. And trust me, I was looking all over for this haunted hallway. I wanted the visual of what the captain was seeing prior, Captain Marriott. It's just hard to see. There's no modern photos of that. There's some layouts of the place, but I digress. So they take a photo of this grand staircase, and while they're setting up the shot, they're putting up the camera, they're making sure light's just right. Shira looks over Captain's shoulders. So Shira looks over Hubbard's shoulder and reportedly saw, quote, a vapory form gradually assuming the appearance of a woman, end quote. She then shouts to the captain to take a photo, and this would be the final image that would send shockwaves to skeptics and believers alike. This is what was published in the magazine, and of course, Fredo, without further ado, here is the image that was published. Let me know if you've seen this before, but otherwise, break it down for me. What are your gut thoughts here?
Yeah, so I haven't seen this before.
Okay.
It's a grainy black and white photo. There's a lot of noise in the photo, but very clearly in the middle is this figure that's way brighter. It's in the shape or form of a person. Doesn't necessarily scream female to me, but they do seem like they're draped over. Kind of looks like there's a cloak on her, like she has like a hood or something.
Okay. Because this is a fascinating opportunity for me to see through fresh eyes for the first time what you're seeing, because I don't want to put things into your head. So the more detail you share, I love this.
Yeah, so I'm not seeing a face. I kind of see what could be described as the shape of a face. And then from there, maybe it's not a cloak, maybe it's hair, but yeah, it seems like their body's covered some kind of cloth, but you could see right through them into the stairs. They're right in the middle of the stairs, descending down, it appears.
Yeah.
But it looked like something.
It does look like something. I'm with you.
I mean, I guess you can like argue that maybe the flash and the reflection somewhere like gave off this kind of, you could almost kind of think like maybe it's like a light smear or something like that.
Okay. Yeah.
It's got harsher lines than you think it would have, but it's like oval shaped.
It's a very interesting photo.
That's an interesting photo. If I took that photo, I'd be gone.
Dude, yeah. I mean, the thing is, too, that they wouldn't know, right? This would be...
Yeah, it'd take a while to develop them.
Yeah. So, I don't need to reiterate, but I feel I must. This has become one of the most famous photos of a ghost or the paranormal. The paranormal community have widely considered this definitive proof of the existence of ghosts, or that ghosts are real, that the afterlife in this plane of existence must be real. However, Of course, with the rise of belief brings the rise of skeptics, the balance of the light and the dark, of course. But since this photo came out so close to the publication of the book called True Ghost Stories, many people believed, with an eyebrow raised here, that this photo must have been tampered with, that perhaps it wasn't necessarily an innocent photograph, but rather a publicity stunt to help promote that book, which is entirely possible. We always talk about the motive being
completely
money.
Possible. But also, I mean, did they look into the photo? Was it tampered with?
They definitely looked into the photo, and this is one of my favorite parts. I know yours as well. When they get hands-on with this stuff.
Yep.
So this photo, as you can imagine, it was a global phenomenon, but it reached the Society for Psychical Research and its lead paranormal investigator, Harry Price. We've talked about this team, this organization, a few times in the past, but suffice to say, it is a nonprofit organization located there in the United Kingdom. It's dedicated to the scientific investigation of events or human abilities that might otherwise be considered paranormal. Anything that seems psychic, anything in that realm, they're very interested in approaching and analyzing. So Price was a well-known paranormal investigator, and he was a keen debunker of fraudulent spiritualism. There are a lot of societies that try to prove the paranormal by way of their analysis, but it seemed that he was on the other end trying to disprove, because like me, I love this concept. I want it to be real to some degree, but you have to
blindly trust it.
Right. You need to go through the scientific rigor. So I appreciate that. And what I really appreciate is that Harry Price here had access to the photo's negative.
Ooh,
so he was able, so he could get right to the source, examine it, and ultimately he concluded that he was unable to find any evidence of fakery. I think some people say that means it's real, that means it's proven. Ultimately, all he said was, I can't show that this has any fakery, which does imply that if there is any fakery, it must have been really well done. But I do appreciate a skeptic taking a look at the negative. Now, of course, despite this, there's still room on both sides for believing and being skeptical, and many do remain skeptical, claiming that there are many logical explanations for this photo, and we're going to go through several of those. And then, Fredo, once we're going through those, I'm curious what your thoughts will be.
Okay.
What stands out to you? Do any of these make sense? Or maybe you subscribe to the idea that this is a little bit harder to fake and it might be real. So first off, the light, as you kind of keenly pointed out, could have leaked into the camera. This would potentially create a hazy illusion that, of course, our innate human pattern recognition might then interpret as something more familiar, like a lady in a dress. This is something that humans do all the time when you look at clouds, when I was a kid trying to go to sleep, you look at the markings in the ceiling and you can kind of see faces in it. It's just something we do. And so a hazy illusion could look like a person. Another idea is that it's possible that this was the result of a camera shake during the 6-second open exposure. So any movement, of course, during long exposure photography is going to create a hazy, blurry after image. In fact, the Lizzie Borden house, one of the images I showed you, but we didn't put in the episode, you actually pointed out that there was a man there whose legs kind of faded out. And that's because it was likely a long exposure. He stood there for some time, so it imprinted him, and then he walked out of the frame, and so then it kind of made him look transparent because now it's capturing the wall behind where he was. Now, on this note, there was something really interesting and modern. I'm going to have you jump ahead to what I've labeled as image E. Now, this is a man and magician named John Booth. Now, he tested this idea of like a long exposure or even a double exposure at the Magic Castle. And in order to do this, he had a colleague there put a sheet over their head, dress up like a ghost, stand or descend the grand staircase, and they then took many different photographs, long exposure, double exposure, and things of that nature. And many point to this photo here, which is his photo, as demonstrable proof that this was, or at least could be, faked. What are you seeing?
Yeah, so I see a man is at the bottom of the stairs. He's holding the rail. It's in the middle of the stairs.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. And right next to him is very much like a sheet over someone's head.
Yeah.
They're a little transparent. He's looking right at them, and then they're just kind of standing there. So they were able to recreate this very easily.
Absolutely. And I mean, ultimately, long exposure, let's say you're open for 6 seconds. if you stand there for 3 and then you move for 3, your opacity, depending on the light, is going to be about 50%, because half of that photograph is spent seeing you and the other half of it is spent seeing what's behind you. So I'm trying to truncate or kind of, simplify the process there a little bit, but that's my understanding. And ultimately, though, it looks like, yeah, they stood there. It's very clear. It's very vivid. The details are very strong, which is maybe the product of this being so intentional, which make me think like, okay, so a fakery is possible, but so is an accident, because the original is blurrier, seems maybe a little less intentional, but I don't know.
Yeah, maybe it was just someone like running up the stairs to grab something, and it just so happened to be in the middle of a photo. But
right,
I think they would know that though.
Yeah.
Maybe they're just snapping away.
Maybe they're snapping away. And if someone's going up and down the stairs and they're moving consistently, you would kind of see a streak of a person,
right?
Going up. What's interesting, coming back to the photo of the brown lady here, this black and white photo, is in the top portion, I almost see like the arc of a light, which makes it look like a spotlight. And I'm outlining that because, one, maybe they put a spotlight on the stairwell to help illuminate it when they took the photo. But I'm saying this now because I'm curious if that has anything to do with the ghost herself and how glowy she is. And we'll talk about that here in the fourth debunking angle. But before we get there, some people have simply said that it's possible that the team put some grease or some sort of similar material on the lens of the photograph, and this would then blur that potential spotlight. This would blur any light coming into the camera and create this otherwise, again, haze in the middle of the photograph. And maybe that's why it's out of focus, I
mean, that's the thing, right? It could be a number of things that create this. The fact that the photo is blurry and the figure is glowing, It's got this kind of like feel to it.
It does. It really does. And I can see why you would be inclined to believe it, because it even looks like the dress is trailing down the stairs a little bit. But then came this last angle. And this is why I really wanted you to digest this photo before I pointed this one out. So here's the last kind of angle. Again, talking about double exposure. This is the idea, instead of a long exposure where you introduce a single frame of film to 2 different images. You expose it twice, and so 2 images are then left to superimpose over the same film. This would happen often back in the day. If you didn't wind your camera and it didn't have double exposure prevention, it would then open the aperture, light would come in, and it would, again, double expose. And that's how you can get some hazing between, oh, it looks like my grandpa's sitting on the couch, but also there's a street light and the storefront's there because 2 photos are overlapping. So for this photograph in particular, this might give the illusion that there's a subject captured in a separate location that is now seen as hovering over the grand staircase. With this in mind, I introduce the theory of the Virgin Mary. Okay, so many point out that the brown lady greatly resembles common depictions of the Virgin Mary, and that this may simply be a photograph of her statue superimposed over the stairwell. And with that, I grabbed just a common statue photograph of the Virgin Mary. If you want to take a look at that last photo I have for you, Freya.
Oh, damn.
And if you hold them side by side now, you can kind of see it.
And the silhouettes match completely.
Yeah.
Even like I said, it looked like a cloth was over her.
Yes.
Right? Because you can kind of see the creases and the shadowing of something like that draped over.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it looks just like her.
Yeah, dude. And this is where it's tough. And I really, like I said, wanted you to see it, because once you see this statue and you go back to the original, you can start to see even the hands coming to prayer. You see the shawl that's over the head, which, again, that shawl, this hood, is not something that was talked about in any of the eyewitness encounters of the brown lady. She was never commonly wearing a hood. Her portrait doesn't have her wearing a hood. And so that stood out to people.
Yeah.
The silhouette seems different. And then some people also point out that you might be able to even see the podium that these statues are commonly on.
Oh, the bottom kind of gets wider.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because the bottom, the podium she's on is just like a little base. I can see how that's there. The podium's there.
Yeah. And so ultimately, the idea here would be that whatever the order of operations would be, just knowing my Photoshop brain, you can get an alpha channel. You take a photo of a very porcelain white statue on a dark background, maybe you use a round spotlight to illuminate the statue so she has a glow to her. You let your film or whatever your material is get exposed to this. Then you close the aperture, you keep it in a dark box of the camera. You then move the camera to the stairs. You once again, without changing film, re-expose it to the stairs. And then suddenly, the bright spot that has now been developed in the center of the photo is now being re-exposed to the stairs. And so the two can lay over top each other.
It does seem very plausible.
Mm-hmm.
I can't stop thinking that it looks just like the statue.
It really does. And that's the unfortunate part is I'm like, man, I wanted this so bad.
Because then why did she have a hood in the first place? Like you were saying, it was never discussed about or talked about. We saw a picture of some of the things that she wore. Like,
now I will say, you thought about this. I didn't think about this. I love that you said it could be her hair. That's possible. It is a black and white photo, so, you know, all the tone will be crushed into just like one shade of gray. And also, I don't know how ghosts operate, you know? If they had black hair, if they had blonde hair, I don't know, you know, what the difference would be when they go to become a ghost.
The rest of her seems like she's got, you know, something draped over her, though.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, you know, even the sleeves, there's no like loose arms or even like tighter sleeves. It is all very drapey for sure.
Yeah, and the Virgin Mary is just easy to come by.
I mean, there might have been one in the garden there at the estate.
True.
But I mean,
there could have been literally one right outside.
Yeah.
Damn,
I kind of wish we knew.
Just like the statue.
Man, here's the thing.
It's like, where would the cross be, right? That didn't show up. She's holding a cross right in the middle. You think there'd be some kind of silhouette of that, or a little bit more in terms of a shape or something?
Yeah, you can kind of see, and again, I can't tell if it's the stairs behind her or if it is her hands, but it kind of implies that at the shoulder level that her hands are kind of coming together. So maybe that's where the cross is. Or also, you know, if they knew what they were doing and this was an intentional fakery, of course, they could put some sort of white material to obfuscate the cross and keep the detail of everything else.
Yeah, that's true.
That just then smooths over the details in the middle. But either way, this is still a very famous photo. And it's still regarded as one of the most famous paranormal photographs of all time. And while many consider this to firmly debunk the brown lady, a lot of people still think, okay, well, the photo was debunked, but the presence of the spirit remains. But with that, unfortunately though, as a ghost lover myself, sightings of Dorothy's spirit have decreased dramatically since the Country Life article came out. And again, I don't know if that is because it implied the idea of a fabricated photo, which kind of dulled anyone's sense of wanting to see something.
Right.
Or if it was all exaggerated and just a product of all of our fears in the dark all along. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It is interesting though that this photo kind of like ended the whole story essentially.
Mm-hmm.
Now, with this though, again, I think you're right. I think it does split people on the photo and the existence of her spirit, because some believe or some speculate that her spirit perhaps has just moved on. That after 200 plus years of walking these halls, that maybe she has faded on, because ultimately we've seen or heard stories of ghosts over 100, 150, 200 years. I don't know how many ghosts are like 3,000 years old. I don't know how many ghosts are speaking dead dialects. I don't know the nature of ghosts. If they are real, do they eventually dissipate? Does their energy fade away? Do they decide to haunt something else? You know, who knows?
Right. There's no like trusted handbook on this, right?
Right.
So it's just like, maybe they just fade over time.
Maybe they fade over time.
Maybe someone came there in the middle of the night and exorcised the hell out of the ghost.
We don't know that. Yeah.
Maybe someone like freed their spirit and that was never reported. Like, I don't know, it could be a number of things.
Or someone snuck in, ghost busted her, got her locked up in a box.
Mm-hmm.
That'd be terrible. Well, I mean, that's another thing. There's many cultures around the world that believe that the photograph captures a piece of the soul, a piece of the spirit.
I got nothing left then.
If this photo's real, what if they snapped it and sucked her out of the house and into this photo?
That'd be wild.
That'd be very wild. Either way, though, you know, debunked or not, I find this so deeply fascinating. It's such an interesting story on who this woman might have been. Of course, I wish we knew more factually about her, the stories that happened the centuries after her passing, and was this Lady Dorothy? Was this someone else? Either way, people saw spirits, and maybe it was the Christmas spirit. You know, it's you're partying, you're drinking a little bit, you go to the dark corridors of this old estate, and you know, the afterlife is top of mind around this time because it's the great unknown, and you see something, and then a tale can just spur on and just outlive you.
Yes, it definitely can. And people like to tell stories. People like to embellish things, right? People want to, like, I don't know, we're natural born storytellers, I feel like.
Absolutely, yeah.
And I think everyone at some point has, like, embellished a story a little bit more.
Totally.
And so, like, why not? It's fun.
It's fun to tell ghost stories.
It's fun to tell ghost stories. It's fun to, like, imagine things and, I don't know, just tell this, like, this fanciful story to someone and see their eyes light up and wonder and curiosity. And so, yeah, I think, you know, we're just natural born storytellers.
Absolutely. To lean into the fear factor of it all. It's truly, truly interesting. And again, I point to the Red Web Scary Stories pilot. It's been available since the beginning of this month. If you haven't listened to it, go re-listen to it. It's our pilot episode. We're talking about scary stories. Fredo's reacted to these in the very same manner. But yeah, I had a lot of fun doing that. And by the way, if we're going to continue to do that, it's based on the success of the pilot. So if you want more, be loud about it, share it, and all of that. But ultimately, though, Raynham Hall still hosts events, tours, and they even offer the opportunity to glamp on their property. Again, I couldn't find too many photos of modern day Raynham Hall. I really wanted to get a shot of that hallway, but I did see a lot of people on like TripAdvisor staying in these like open globes, so you can kind of see the sky. And then you see the estate down the way. But ultimately, though, for better or worse, and for me it's worse, if paranormal activity ever occurred in this house, and it truly did terrify people, real or not, it's not widely publicized today. And that could be a product of less people going through it, could be a product of this photo debunking it and kind of squelching any interest in the area. But it continues to add to the idea that ghost stories are a product of people, people are a product of ghost stories, and maybe they're real, or maybe they're always just in our storytelling. But either way, deeply fascinating. And this has been the Brown Lady of Raynham Hall.
I love it because it's such a vivid photo.
Oh yeah, I just keep staring at it. Dude.
Yeah, exactly. I have it up and I'm just looking at it, and I mean, damn, is a really good photo. I kind of wish you didn't show me the Virgin Mary because now that's all I see. I know. But you know, we gotta look at it from all angles. It does really. That statue lines up so well. It's just unfortunate because like this looks like such a like, I don't know, genuine photo.
Yeah.
You know. Yeah. Of like, oh man, this could be it. This could be like the one sign that we've finally got. Someone got something.
Right. Someone got some. I don't know. I just love looking at historical photographs like this and trying to imagine that time period, being in that spot. It's like time travel in and of itself. But with that, we come to a close on this episode. I will say, if you're looking for another haunting photo, the one that has always stood out to me, Fredo, is that image of the boy at the Amityville house. I believe I showed that to you in the episode we talked about that.
Yeah.
But that to me, whether it's pattern recognition or not, that one stands out to me as one of the wildest, most terrifying images of a potential ghost. But Task Force, if you want more ghost material, if you're in it for the holidays, because Halloween's right here, and then I'll be sad next week because then I gotta wait a whole 12 months.
Yeah, you do.
But we're in it right now. If you want to see more ghost stuff, tomorrow we are posting our ghost hunt. Once again, revisiting Yorktown Memorial Hospital. So come on over, check that out. Support us directly at redwebpod.com and join the likes of our newest buff scientist, Kind Whiskey. We also have Brittany Buckland as another buff scientist, slanging and banging those beakers.
Okay.
And then, of course, our squonks of the week. We have Broman, Clint from PS3, Brett O'Meara, and Andy Schrock, just to name a few. Thank you all so much for your support. And happy Halloween. Fredo, I'll see you tomorrow for the ghost hunt, and right back here next Monday for yet another mystery.